everybody, we're back with three. Where the hell's Paul?
Oh my gosh.
What? Is that a cat ball?
It is. Woo! Cat ball. And look, it's two different colors too. Isn't that kind of cool?
I knew you were a cat guy. I just somehow I felt it.
You see that? Hold on, right there. You see that? Right there. He's looking at you. He's judging you. Look at that.
I have 4 dogs that would love to meal that thing.
Hey, we're gonna have to be like the Febreze brothers, right? New start. So fresh. Anyways, hey everybody. We are 3 guys, and here's today's ball. We are going to talk about put it away. We're going to talk about what is security actually. Let's serve this thing up. I like that. I'm glad we finally got a good intro. Although, Paul, that was pretty epic. I like that. You got to be a manly man to throw out the cat ball.
Oh, hell yeah. Come on now.
Awesome.
The jingle and everything.
Oh man.
Jake's like, oh.
Cat. Hey, where I'm from, cats are good in the barn, and that's it.
Well, what is security? It's an interesting thing, guys, because we're all in the security industry. But what do you think? If you went to a conference and you asked 100 people, how many answers would you get?
Probably 100 different answers.
Yeah, you probably get some guys being like, it's my job. It's an industry. It's me doing cool stuff. It's me stopping bad people. It's a group of us protecting things.
It's me wearing my security shirt that says security on the back.
Yeah, man.
I got a flashlight, makes me security.
Don't knock the flashlight, bro. That saved the entire last episode.
Hey, I wanted to bring something up about that. Like, does that flashlight fit in skinny jeans?
Yeah, bro. Haven't you seen me?
Can you stand, please?
I'm not wearing pants right now, bro. So I'm at home. It's interesting, right? Because if we cannot come up with like an explanation of what security is does anybody have to wonder why when we get outside of government, outside of the military, and we start working at a company whose job is not security, and they ask us, what are you doing? Like, why is it that you're here? What are you actually providing? What is this security? And so that's why I thought it would be an interesting topic to talk about today. We did get off on a tangent on the active threat, active shooter topic because it was very timely, still very timely, although we could never get off of it if we just watched the news, unfortunately. But we're kind of getting back to these foundational videos, like what are our thoughts and how do we view different concepts? And so let's ask, what is security from a client's perspective or from a Fortune company's perspective? So when you get out of government, what happens?
Go ahead, Paul. You're the most recent. Okay. Wait, is Timmy raising his hand again? Do I need to raise my hand?
I'm showing you my badge. That doesn't exist anymore, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm no longer from the government. That means I can't help do anything because I no longer have laws or executive orders defining my authority in society. I can no longer step outside of the law that now as a civilian, I'm bound to remain within because of my badge, which means I can't have special privileges to tailor every environment I walk into to help my program, the only program, or maybe one of 3 variations of a program that we ever do, no matter where we're at, because we have the authority to dictate the environment to make sure that what we're doing is not only reasonable, but it will work 99% of the time.
And
Does
I
that make
want to
sense?
go ahead.
I want to hear from you, bro.
So I kind of want, and it's really awesome that you mentioned that, Tim, because, you know, and a lot of that has to do with how the country as a whole is set up. Under federalism, federal law trumps state law, and especially when it comes to certain kind of security measures. And it kind of goes into what you were talking about as far as, you know what, I no longer have a badge. All that federal law stuff no longer applies because now I've not fallen down, but now I have to abide by state laws, which crap, depending on what state it is, it's different. So I don't know any of it. So now I got to learn it all over again.
You do have to learn it. But here's the thing. Now, when somebody asks you what is security, and you start to say, well, I'm going to have 9 people in a 3-car motorcade. And they're like, nope, you don't. Okay. Well, then what we're going to do is we're going to block off the street. Nope, not blocking off the street. Okay. Then we're going to redirect traffic. Nope, not doing that. I'm going to get the hotel concierge and tell them they have to do what I tell them to do. Well, that's a good idea, but only if they want to, because you can't make anybody do anything. And so when we transition out of government, we often stumble. And so the things that we're used to security being don't apply very well. And so we have a hard time explaining why it is we need to do different things. So what I like to say is security is an outcome. It's kind of a state of being for an organization. Maybe it's even a feeling that we feel secure. So it's not actually a specific task that we're doing. It's not a specific program that we're implementing, but it is, how does our organization feel right now? Do they feel secure? And that sounds like it is pretty intangible, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So how do we get this feeling in these organizations?
So I would say, to add to a lot of what you just said, it comes to accountability of the mission and those within your operation, that you have the mission to, you know, be supporting, and that also comes to your clientele as well, and also the areas of operation that you're going to encounter. You have to be aware of those bystanders within the mission, or within the environment of your mission.
I do like what you said about accountability, but I want to take it a step further. And this is where, when we come out of military and the government, we lose our minds. We actually need to embrace transparency. So in the military, you have your general orders, you have the mission that you're doing. It's templated, and this is what we're going to do. In the government, very similar things. When you show up in different environments, when you get a different protectee or whatever it is, hey, this is your role, this is my role, here's how it's going to go. Awesome. And there's no real transparency about how this is being done. It's just understood that we do these things because there's laws that say this is what we do. And so when you get with an organization, you actually have to ask them, like, what do you want to accomplish? And they'll say, I don't know, we want security. Okay, but what does it take to get security? So what we have to ask them is assets, people, buildings, reputation, intellectual property, which is not even very tangible all the time. Sometimes that's literally the ideas people have. What are your highest priority assets? Assets that if you lost or they were taken by another entity would disrupt your business, your core business, would lose you the cash flow that you're expecting, would disrupt your not only your annual report, but your quarterly report. And as security professionals, we fall all over ourselves because we see the shiny thing, the thing that reminds us of what we used to do. And we say like, oh yes, I want to protect that. I like it. I understand that one. But that's not always what's important to a business. Sometimes one of the most important things they could have you protect is a process. And so how do you guys feel about that? Is there a problem with security people feeling insecure, I always talk about the insecurity, when they are the ones that have to ask questions because we feel like we need to know.
Yes.
Why?
Paul, I'll let you go. I'll let you go first, Paul, if you want.
Well, I mean, when going back to the question about, security feeling insecure, I mean, normally when you think about security, one of the first things you think about is a guy with a gun or a guard or a guy that, like Jake said, that has security on the back of his shirt. But Tim, what you're saying is right. Increasingly, security is moving to intellectual property, to the digital frame. They're increasing a cybersecurity. They're increasing, even in the military, their cybersecurity wing.
Yep.
So increasingly, the attacks are not coming from direct threats, like, for example, guns or knives or anything like that anymore. They're coming from viruses, from ransomware, from stuff like that. So now you have to fight in the digital space of how do you secure your digital space. And and that's where I think it comes into, well, what is security, right? And the reason, going back to what you were saying earlier, Tim, about the reason why there's 100 different answers to 100 different questions, or to the same question of what is security, is because they're answering from their own perspective on what they do in that little tiny piece of security versus looking at the entire package.
So that's what we're doing, is we're getting to the core of the process of security. Good point, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, this also goes into, I mean, the key word I think that made me think of it when you mentioned all these other little subcategories would be protection. It's big, and that's accountability / protection is involved, but accountability is less of a direct word for protection. But seriously, protection is, at all levels, the digital, the physical, and also the personal space. You got to protect your people. And that's one thing that and kind of back to our last few sessions that we've done in our recordings on the active threat, the individuals, the livelihoods of the people that help you get your mission done, they should be immediate priority, and everything else should fall in line after that.
True statements. Hey, I got a question for you too, real quick. Yeah. Have you lived inside your body your entire life, or have you either had like moments of time to where you haven't been inside your body?
I have.
Really?
Yeah.
That's another episode, bro. Yes.
No. Okay, so wait, hold on. Okay,
boy.
Real quick. So when I was in high school, for all you security people and police officers that are about to, yell at me, I was about 14 years old, and I did something I wasn't supposed to do. I went to a rave, several of them actually. Yeah, exactly. I was one. Yeah, screw you. Okay, with your freaking Asian stereotypes, right? But
you feel insecure,
yes, Asian
bro.
Rave. I know. I'm falling right into that sucker. I get it. Okay, screw you. Anyways, I did a couple of things I wasn't supposed. I tried a couple of new little things I wasn't supposed to be doing, and I ended up, it's kind of funny. I actually ended up seeing myself above my own body. It was freaking weird. It lasted for about a good, it might have only been like a minute or two, but it seemed like it was forever. And then I remember doing it because the music was kind of going off in the background, and I was like hovering over my body. And like, I see like vibrations in front of me because of the music, and the bass was going so freaking loud.
Wow. Well, that's why you shouldn't vape, bro. I mean, vaping's not good for you.
Right. It's definitely what it was.
The reason I ask, besides that amazing story that I had no idea was coming, is because, like, hey, when you feel pain or discomfort, like, you automatically know like what's wrong, right? You don't ever go to a doctor, right?
Yeah.
So you've lived inside your body your entire life, and you still don't know what's wrong when you feel pain, when you feel sick, and you have to go to a doctor. And so we have to understand that organizations outside of government that we serve are the same. Just because you've been in that industry forever you may feel business pain, you may feel security pain, uncertainty that you don't understand why. And that's why we're here to help. So actually, when we identify the assets that are the highest priority for the company, then we can understand what is it about these assets that we can protect? What is it about the environment these assets live in or transit through or whatever that gives us different vulnerabilities and different risk attributes that we can identify and then say, okay, in these circumstances, here's what we can do. And we can apply these types of programs to these types of situations for these assets. And here are the outcomes we can expect, and communicate very clearly on that. And an interesting thing, right? So if we get back to the medical assessment, when a doctor talks to you or a paramedic talks to you and they say, okay, here's what I think is wrong, take this or do this, and we should expect. And if you don't, come back. And so if we take that same type of approach with the companies, then we can actually say, here's what we think should happen. That sounds good. That's what we want to happen. Okay. Well, if we do these things in these environments, we should get these outcomes. And if we don't get these outcomes, then we can do pre-incident or post-incident debriefs. We can do operational debriefs, and we can understand why didn't we get the outcome that we were thinking of. And then we can identify how security precautions within an organization actually work in different environments to protect whatever these assets are. And then we can say, take it a step further. You know, in the office environment, now let's just go back to a shooter. Shooters don't teleport into the lunchroom. They start in the parking lot. So if we put somebody out in the parking lot to watch everybody who's approaching the lobby, and we had the ability to lock down a lobby with the push of a button when we saw certain criteria, because actually this threat cannot materialize without these other environmental issues going on. And once we see those environmental issues coming together, quick reaction to cut off that avenue of approach and delay so that we can respond, so that law enforcement can respond. And now we can push out, right? Farther left of bang. And all of these things can give us metrics, things that we can track. And then we can even take it a step further. We can look at other companies that have had incidents that impact assets that are similar to ours and say, okay, so when this happened over there, we talked to them and here was what they were doing in the environment. And here's what actually happened. Would this actually work here? Would this attack or loss? Because we always think about attack, but loss, there's all sorts of ways that these assets can be compromised. Would this work here? And we can do tabletops. We can hire people to do tabletops to run us through drills. We can partner with companies that have experienced losses that we're trying to avoid and help them understand how it happened and how it might happen in our environment. And we can get data. And now we can actually refine our environment, the environment that we can control to such an extent that we can say, hey, we have this locked down as long as we can control these things and monitor for these things. And here are the metrics to show it. Nice, Gumby. And then, by the way, here's the risks that we're not managing at all because we can't for whatever reason, or we don't have money, we don't have resources. So what do you guys think? That's different than government, right?
So now you're also blending the waters of, you're taking that fresh water and mixing it with some salt water here with, now you're tying into the risk management side as well with the last couple of things you mentioned for loss prevention and things like that.
Yeah.
So but I really like how you mentioned the understanding at what level, at the highest level, understanding what are we actually protecting and how are we going to invest in that protection? Because the way I think this really needs to work is all staff members, all stakeholders that, you know, there's need to know at levels, but all stakeholders need to know their part of what they're involved with for protection and accountability.
Yep.
And that's, I think, where we have this mix up of and the virtual world has been challenged in the last 13 months with COVID, and businesses have been forced to adjust for whether it's meetings now, whether they're Zoom or less accountability on physical presence.
Yep.
Because the health departments don't play around with this kind of stuff.
No.
And I think what we're seeing now is we're seeing the accountability piece is going to be very challenging once we come back to some kind of normalcy again from this last 13 months, especially when we blend back to working in our offices and our facilities.
Yep.
We're going to have to really come back and find our mission again and bring everybody back to that refresher course that we all need every once in a while.
Yeah, and this is the time that we can kind of reset expectations for when people come back to the new normal that we're all expecting, and say, hey, there's going to be new expectations for how you engage with security. There's going to be new expectations for how we conduct different things. And these are things that you can be designing now while your company is largely empty and people are at work. And then you can kind of reintroduce them. You can re-onboard them into this new security culture of your company, and that's, if you get upper management buy-in, that can be a great thing.
And,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Do it, Jake.
No, that was just agreeing. I completely agree.
So, you know what, Tim, I'm really glad you mentioned that as well, because we have the opportunity right now to retrain essential personnel to tackle all sorts of new security threats that are out there in various different categories: executive protection, loss prevention, cybersecurity, all those, right? But at the same time, we also have to come to the knowledge and reality that as we start transitioning back post-COVID, that there is going to be a lot of hurdles that we're going to have to go through.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I saw this personally when, we were locked down for 6-7 months. We were finally back in the quote unquote red or orange phase, or whatever the hell California has us on. And we're allowed to dine in for I think it was a month or so before they locked us back down again. But during that time, when it came to security and the server staff, a lot of it was, they weren't prepared. They literally weren't, because you had servers that didn't know what they were doing. I literally saw a security guard not knowing what his job even was. He just stood there. And I asked him, hey, what are you doing here? And he goes, oh, I'm guarding. I'm like, you're on the side of the corner, dude. Shouldn't you be at the door? It took a couple of weeks, but after that, everything kind of worked itself out. But that's one of the big concerns that I have, is that there isn't a lot of pre-planning going on in terms of operations or securities, during the lockdown. Now I think they might start to, because of the vaccine, but it's one of those things that pre-planning is always a good thing. And I saw a lot of issues during the whole COVID pandemic.
Yeah, and you know what? Oh, go ahead, Paul or Jake. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You go, Tim.
One thing that I was going to say is, now that we're thinking about people coming back into the office, but security operations are not critical because we don't have a lot of people in the office, who here has approached legal and said, hey, FYI, let's review our security response plans to make sure that they're legally defensible, and talk about why we're doing them and if we should be making changes, since we're going to have to retrain a lot of staff very soon. That does a couple things. One, legal buys off on what you're doing. You're more protected should you have to run an incident. Number two, they're going to ask why you're doing the things you're doing, and you can help them understand how you came to these policies and procedures, what types of things kept you from doing what you would like to do, but you've come here instead. And now might be a time to get buy-in for better programs, or say, you know what, this is good for now, but we should review in 6 months because we think you might need to. And a lot of times security is afraid of the legal department, but in my experience, they're one of our strongest supporters, because we are security deals with a very tangible type of risk that will always have legal repercussions. So if I was going to say, what is security? You know what I would say? You want to hear it?
Go ahead.
Please.
I would say that security is programs that implement risk mitigations to assets that the company has expressly told us they need protected.
Customized customized and tailored to every single unique situation and organization.
So I want to say this to Paul's point he mentioned earlier about that the restaurant and the lack of security from the security officer. So one thing that I've noticed in my organization is, especially with access control, and I know our big dog Lee out there who sponsors us and is providing this platform for us. That's like his heart. That's core to him. So for me, access control, you're using the A phones, the doorbells.
Intercoms, yeah.
So one thing that's hard with COVID is, everybody's got a mask on. So, you don't tell them to take their mask off at the camera, especially in a educational environment, because there's a line of people. So how do I not let one person in, or how do I let one person in and not the rest when in that situation? So even that accountability of access control has been very lax because of COVID, because of the measures of the mask and screening with questions and identification. So we could go further into that, but I wanted to cover that in a basic way where unfortunately we kind of have to draw back a little bit on how firm we are on certain things because of the given situation.
But a great opportunity for the security department to go to the decision makers and say, so here's the deal. Here is how our program has been designed. And because of masks, because of these things, we're not able to do these things. So you have a heightened risk. Here are all of the options that we could implement to help reduce that risk, or you may be okay with it, but it's your call. And that is a core responsibility of security, is not just saying like, don't worry, we've got this, but going to the leaders of whatever organization you're in and letting them know like what environmental factors are impacting the risk that we're mitigating, what is changing how we're providing services, and is this level of risk that's rising still acceptable to you, or should we look at other ways to reduce the risk, even though it may cause longer for people to get into schools or whatever that is. And that's where security professionals need to become much better conversationalists.
Yeah, I agree. And a last thing to add to that is also within your other departments within the organization, security. I also challenge security professionals to remember that you don't have this power that they don't have just because of your billet. Okay. Your job is to work with them and not bring power into it and ego, because a lot of people work in security for power. I've seen it all throughout my young career that I've had. Work well, communicate, and be open, because they don't understand and they can't articulate why you do what you do.
That's a really good point. If you want to be powerful, you should probably stay in the government, because on the private side, power is influence. The ability to have people side with you and say, yeah, this is a good idea, we're going to support it. It's not your idea.
That's actually, again, and that's not just in security. That's, being hard-handed and heavy-handed doesn't work well in any industry. Let's just be clear on that. It doesn't work well in any industry. You try to be powerful in a management situation, you're going to get it. You're going to be putting in your 2 weeks notice within a very short period of time, because no one's going to want to work with you.
Change your mindset.
Yep.
Unless you're the CEO, your company's about to blow up.
Well, no, because then you got the board of directors that say, get out. Right?
Yeah,
hey, you know what? There's a really important thing that all security professionals should know before we bounce this ball out of the court. Don't be a dick. 3 guys. Talk to you later.